unanimously. And unfortunately, that bill didn't make it all the way through because of time. So I'm running that ADU bill again this year to help with ADUs in rural areas. And in addition, I'm running another ADU bill. It's a WASAC priority bill, Washington Association of Counties. And so there'll be two ADU bills that'll kind of be on our agenda in the House this year, and really just trying to have affordable housing for everyone and having more housing options. We have a lot of people struggling right now, trying to find housing, and so just having more options is extremely important. Another bill that I'm running is House Bill 1007 to deal with small claims actions. I learned about this bill in Skagit County when I was meeting with our judges, and apparently when it comes to small claims, sometimes people are filing claims for the maximum amount, even though their claim might only be for $800. They might file a claim for $10,000. And for some reason, if somebody doesn't show up to court on the other side, the judges have no choice but to give the maximum amount when somebody doesn't show. And so giving judges a little bit of discretion, that saying, hey, your case is only for $800, even though you asked for 10,000. And so I'm going to award you the full amount because the person didn't show, but not putting, further amounts on people that aren't really necessary. And so that's a bill that I'm working on this year. I actually have 13 bills that I've filed so far this session. And so there's a lot of bills, and I think I have 5 more that I am filing. So that's going to put me at 18 bills. And that's a heavy load. My first 2 years together, I ran 14 bills. And so to run more than that in one session is going to be a lot. It's a heavy lift, but there's a lot of issues that need to be addressed and taken care of. And so that's some of the other things I'm working on. Just a couple other bills off, that might matter to some in the room. I am running a bill to help with roads for county local roads, House Bill 1098, and helping some of our streets that connect into the bigger streets, and making sure that those have funding too. And so that'll be a good bill. Hopefully we'll get some traction this year. I have a chop shop bill, House Bill 1086. Car thefts are at the very, very highest in Washington. I think we're the 3rd highest in the state for car thefts. A lot of this has to do with chop shops. And so I have a chop shop bill that I work closely with the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office on to make sure that we hold those that are stealing cars accountable. We're seeing a tremendous amount of car thefts, and so trying to bring that under control. I think I'm getting close to the end of my time. So I just want to thank everybody for showing up today. It is going to be a very busy session. And if you get down to Olympia, come say hello. I'd love to say hello to you if you come down to Olympia. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, 10th District, Representative Paul, please. Representative Paul, we can see you.
Oh, wonderful. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. Do not crash your car.
Yeah, no, I'm not driving, but I'm having some trouble here. I'm sorry. Can you folks still hear me? I'm sorry.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Hi, folks. I'm State Representative Paul. I'm so sorry that I'm not joining you in person. I've got a college meeting here that I've got to get to, that I have to take before the legislative session starts. But I'm really excited for the upcoming legislative session. A couple of bills I am working on. One is I've worked a lot on dual credit, which is those opportunities for high school students to earn college credit while they're still in high school. We've done tremendous work on Running Start in college and the high school, expanding both of those programs. And this year, I'm really focusing on career and technical education. Those are our occupational skills classes that our high schools offer. We have great community college programs as well that help connect students to those family wage jobs, but we don't always have those two programs talking to each other really well. So I have a bill to help expand what we're doing in the northwest corner of our state. That includes work here in Skagit and Island counties, in Snohomish County, and we'd like to expand that statewide. That bill is not dropped yet. I'm hoping maybe one of my local Republican colleagues would be the co-sponsor, and I've reached out to a couple of folks. But I'm working on that bill right now. I've got another bill that helps provide more flexibility for municipalities to use their REIT funding, and a very narrow bill, but that was brought to me by the city of Oak Harbor. And then I'm continuing my work on transportation to help improve our ferry system. Was down in Clinton and Mukilteo yesterday with Governor-elect Ferguson and talking directly to ferry riders and workers about ways of improving the process. We are hoping to have that bidding process for the next 5 vessels completed right about the time that we are exiting session this year. I really appreciate all your good work to help businesses and our community to be thriving, and I look forward to seeing folks face to face very soon.
Thank you very much, Representative Paul. Let's go to the 40th and start with Senator Lovelock, please.
Hey there, everybody. Thanks for having us out here ahead of session. Very busy time for folks. I know I had to JLARC right after this, the Joint Legislative Audit Review Committee. So this time of year, we're getting ready to move down to Olympia because our crew has a little too far to go to commute. So it's a big time of transition for us and our families as we get ready to roll up our sleeves and be full-time at work for the people of Washington State. So a couple of changes this year for me. I've been selected by my peers to serve as the Deputy Majority Leader of the Senate. So I will now be at the leadership table for making all kinds of decisions. And part of that this year, I will be the coordinator for the Climate Commitment Act budget. That's a new development as of yesterday. So I will be working on a budget that spans across all 3, operating, capital, and transportation, to make sure that we're delivering for our communities the kinds of projects that are going to help us transition to the environmental future that I think we all know is headed our way, especially as we're seeing the devastating wildfires in California that are leveling homes and businesses. It's more urgent than ever to make sure that we're reducing our emissions and that we're investing in the kinds of policies and programs that enable us to move forward. Couple of things that are top of mind, and especially as we kind of think about the future of our children, our communities, and our workforce. As I'm sure many of you have heard about the very dire state of school funding. We really are at an impasse where we have a budget that overall is about $10 billion anemic over the 4-year outlook. And frankly, there's no way to do budget cuts that are going to get us out of this. And while we are thoroughly scrubbing the budget to make sure that we're getting as many efficiencies as we can in as many places as we can, I think that generally what that means functionally is that we eliminate staff positions. And if any of you have ever called up Department of Employment Security, if any of you have ever called up Department of Fish and Wildlife or the Department of Commerce, you want somebody on the other side of that line to be able to answer your questions, elevate your concerns, and make sure that your questions are being answered. So we're going to have a really tough year. I'm sure many of you have seen the press around the Senate Democrats and some different revenue options that are floating around there. Frankly, we cannot solve these problems without raising new revenue. And we're trying to do it in a way that is equitable and progressive and asking the wealthiest among us to pay their fair share so that we can continue to provide relief for working families, seniors, and small businesses. In terms of bills that I'm working on, I continue to serve on the Energy, Environment, and Technology Committee. I am on transportation, where I'll keep working with my esteemed colleagues Ramel and Paul on ferry issues. And I'm the vice chair of local government this year. So I'll be running the recycling reform bill that's been going around for a couple of years. We really want to make sure that producers are putting some skin in the game on ensuring that the products, the everyday products that we're using in our homes, are in fact made of recyclable material, and that they can then be recycled after that. So previously known as the WRAP Act, we'll be bringing that back. We've taken a tremendous amount of stakeholder input from the business community to really make a work product that is functional, that can be implemented, and that should overall reduce costs. Additionally, I'll be bringing back my short-term rental excise tax bill. We've talked about this in years past. It kind of functions similarly to the way the lodging tax works, where there would be an excise tax that would be levied to the customer on the furnishing of short-term rentals that could then go in at the local level to be able to help pay for affordable housing and workforce housing projects, the infrastructure that's related to that, and other community service programs that help make our neighborhoods strong. I'm working on a couple of land use and housing issues. I'm excited to continue to work with Rep. Lowe on the rural ADU issue. I'll have a bill that's dropping that'll essentially be kind of a companion to his in the Senate, so that we can keep that vehicle going. And then additionally working on some reform around how many housing units can be provided in landmarks. For those wonks out there, those are local areas of more intense rural development. So trying to make sure that we have affordable housing options across our counties, regardless of what size community you're living in. And then additionally, there's been a lot of talk about the way that we need to kind of improve the subdivision process. So I'll have a bill that I'll be dropping in the next couple of days that has to do with kind of concurrency around subdivisions, making sure that in our densest urban areas, we're allowed to subdivide down to a smaller lot size, and to continue to improve the language and the way that the permits move for those types of subdivisions. I try to keep my bill portfolio fairly small because it's a lot of work to get things to the finish line. So while I'll have a number of companion bills, those are the big ones that I'll be working on, because I am going to be devoting a whole lot of time to being in leadership meetings and to working on the Climate Commitment Act budget. So thanks for having me here, and looking forward to questions.
Thank you, Senator Levitt. Rep. Ramel, please.
Great. Well, thanks, Andy. I was going to tease Rep. Lowe for the number of bills. I was just looking over all the bills in the introductory sheet and saw all of the bills he's introduced. If anybody has any questions about whether Sam is able to do two jobs effectively, check that out. He's doing a ton of work. It's good to see. And a lot of good bipartisan work in there too, which I think is frequently a hallmark for folks from this delegation. So a few things I'll talk about, and then really want to underscore point that Senator Levitt made about our overarching budget. This year, I'm working on a couple of bills in the clean energy space. We've heard frequently from communities that are worried that when clean energy projects are going up in those communities, whether that's wind farms or solar farms, or in the case of Skagit County, battery storage facilities, that there's not sufficient local benefit to those projects, and that the economic value of those projects isn't being shared in those communities. So I'm working on some legislation that will help to make sure that the economic benefits of those projects really flow back into the communities. And that'll do two things. One, it's more fair for locals, but two, it's also going to help us say yes to more projects so that we can have the kind of clean energy abundance that we need. I think folks in Skagit County, or many folks in Skagit County, are familiar with the challenges we've had with getting Puget Sound Energy to deliver to certain parts of the county so that businesses can expand. Building clean energy is an opportunity to accelerate our economic development. Similarly, I'm working on electricity transmission bill, trying to use no acronyms more wonky than LAMNerd. I'll just say that our, the the principle of the legislation that I'm working on with Senator Sharon Shoemake is that we want to encourage development of more efficient transmission in our existing corridors. There's a lot of opportunities for investment there that will make the most of the infrastructure we already have. And then in cases where we do need to build new transmission corridors, there's some work that we can do to help the state get those projects up and ready to go. Sometimes with the many different electric utilities, who's going to pay for it, who's going to do the work, has been a barrier to getting those projects even started. So we're going to try to create a Washington Electrical Transmission Development Authority. Also really focused on continuing to address our housing challenges. I think you all know that I tend to think about our housing challenges in several different sort of buckets. There's no one size fits all solution. But one of the things we need to do is to continue to increase supply of housing. Along those lines, I'm working on two things. Our multifamily tax exemption program has a number of, I think, relatively small improvements that will make the program work much better and help cities and in some cases counties do a better job of incentivizing construction of multifamily housing and keeping some of those units affordable to folks who are income qualified when we're providing those tax benefits to the developers. Second thing I'm working on in that space is self-certification for permits for the simplest projects, accessory dwelling units. Self-certification is a way to reduce permit times that's shown some promise in other jurisdictions. There's some questions about, if we're reducing regulations, are we giving up things that are really important? And I think we got to be very careful about that. So I'm proposing a small trial that would allow some cities to opt in to allowing architects to self-certify, reduce permit times, but still have some oversight specifically for accessory dwelling units. I think we should try this idea out, see if it works, and decide later if we want to expand it or try it with more building types in the future. Final thing on housing, we've talked about this in the past. In addition to increasing housing supply, we got to make sure that rents are stabilized for folks who, for the more than 50% of Washingtonians who are renters. I believe that it's appropriate for landlords to be able to raise rent a little bit, but I've heard from too many people who in the past few years whose rent has gone up by hundreds of dollars, sometimes 25% or more from one month to the next. When that happens, people end up moving out of the community. Some people end up, kids have to switch school districts. Some people end up sleeping in their cars. We should allow some rent increases, but we should not allow unlimited rent increases, and we should put a cap on it. We passed that bill out of the House last year. I'm hopeful that we've got a trajectory to move it through both chambers this coming year. And then the last thing I want to talk about is just underscoring what Senator Lovelet said about the need for revenue in our budget situation. Rep. Eslick talked about the importance of childcare. I doubt anybody on this call is not familiar with how important that is, not just as something that's good for our kids, but also for for our workforce to be able to participate. And we're going to have to, if we are challenging, if our budget challenges don't have a new revenue source, we're going to be making cuts to childcare. We talked last night, many of us talked with superintendents and teachers unions from the northwest corner of the state. The challenges that our school districts are facing, special education funding especially, but in many other funding categories as well, are not going away and are not going to be able to be addressed if we don't have new revenue. When we talk with leaders in Skagit County,
let me slow you down a little bit so we can get to questions, but
yeah,
appreciate what you're saying.
I'll wrap up
Yeah.
and just say our ability to meet all of the needs in Washington State is dependent on our ability to bring in revenue. For me, the bottom line on that is going to be, does the revenue source leave working people, low and moderate, middle income folks better off? We have an upside down tax code. We can do better with things like a wealth tax or a or those kinds of things that will help to solve the larger problem while leaving most people in Washington with the same or reduced tax burden. Looking forward to questions. Thanks.
Fantastic. So we're going to take questions from the room. Deborah, you're first, by the way, and we'll alternate if there are questions from Zoom. So if you have a question, you're on Zoom. Would you raise your hand? That will work as well.
Thank you, Andy. Thanks to all 5 of you who are with us. It is a lot of time out of a very busy time for you, so we appreciate it. I'm Deborah Lancaster. I live in Cedro-Woolley, Washington. I am happily retired now from being the director of United Way of Skagit County. However, I'm really proud that I am part of a strong group of people, organizations, the Children's Council of Skagit County. And there are several people who are joining me here from that group. They represent several organizations of the over 30 that are part of the Children's Council of Skagit County. And we are supported, our council is supported by the Washington Communities for Children and the Help Me Grow Network, which are state supported as well. This kind of support is crucial for us. I wanted to point out, and there is a question in here. If you invest strongly in a child's skill base and their social and emotional growth, this allows for a higher return later on. I know we're in a very difficult financial strait right now, but James Heckman, a Nobel Prize winning economist, he won the Nobel Prize for the work that he did studying the effects of quality early learning experiences. And what he found is that every dollar spent in this year will save $4 to $16 a year, every year of the child's life. I was going to bring in books or something that would show how between 4 and 16, so we'll just average out at 10. A savings of $10 a year would add up for every child, but I didn't have enough wheelbarrows to bring in something that would show the enormity of this savings. It is literally a pay me now or pay me later kind of a thing. So the earlier we act with children, the more the impact is for the kids, for their families, for our businesses, and for our community. And so my question, my heartfelt request to you is to please not cut early learning, and if possible, even allow a little more support. And I know how hard that's going to be, but Carolyn, you talked about it specifically. It's really important that we have the support for those families. And so I just ask what your feelings are on this and how you can see yourself supporting early learning. Carolyn?
Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah, for all of that information. That has become more known in Olympia the last few years than ever before. So I think we all understand it, pay now or pay later. But of course, as you heard from I'm putting families first, and I think that Governor-elect is also doing the same, because I'm kind of hearing that through the grapevine. We can't skimp on our children. There's other areas that we can skimp, but not with our children. So I will do everything I can in my power to make sure that we at least keep status quo right now. There's talk about not increasing the seats for ECAP until we get the budget in order, and that kind of makes sense, right? But I think that we can elevate our, speaking of workforce and childcare, if we can elevate our home care, I think that that will help us a lot. Folks don't know that that they can have their own childcare in their own home with less restrictions, as long as they're not taking state money, right? That's when all the restriction, the permitting and all of that has to come in. So there's ways that we can keep moving forward. And there's important work to be done now that isn't going to cost us a lot of money. And that is revamping our child care program, permitting and licensing. So that's my work. Thanks, Deborah, for the good work that you guys do.
Thank you. Let's go to question from Zoom land. Lance Calloway, please.
Yes, thank you, Andy. And to all the legislators, thank you for being here with us. And more importantly, thank you for the next, I believe it's 120 days you're going to commit to serving our state. My question is in regards to infrastructure. As you probably are well aware, I'm with Associated General Contractors of Washington. And the big concern a lot of us have is the aspects of maintaining our current infrastructure, and not necessarily talking about building new, but we've got to look at how we retain, update, upgrade, repair so much of the current infrastructure out there. I realize funding is a source of concern, but one of the things is if we can address this sooner, it will cost far less today than it will tomorrow. And I guess one of the aspects I specifically want to bring up is the consideration for moving the car sales tax from the general fund to become a protected Amendment 18 for the use in the capital and maintenance programs for infrastructure. Could I hear any thoughts you may have on that?
Yeah, just jump in, please.
Thanks. I think we have to be unmuted each time. Yeah, happy to jump in and talk a little bit about that. And good question, Lance. I would start off and emphasize that in this last transportation package that we passed a couple of years ago, we put more money towards road maintenance than has ever been put in any previous tax passage in Washington state history, which is good work, and it's still not enough. You're right. Maintaining what we have is the most valuable investment that we can be making. But the politically expedient thing to do is always to, show up at the ribbon cutting for the new project rather than taking care of what we've already got. So it's an important point. In terms of a general fund transfer to the transportation budget, I'm certainly willing to contemplate that. I think there's willingness there. Our general fund is, as we've been talking about, is about $10 billion underwater right now. So taking money out of that, whether it's through dedicated fund like sales tax for automobiles, or just as we've done in the past, simply saying we're going to move X dollars from one budget to the other, we have the flexibility to do that. I would rather not tie the hands of future legislators and make one-time transfers as needed than have a dedicated particular sales tax. I don't think there's necessarily a strong, compelling reason to do that. The other thing I just emphasize here is that our gas tax is declining and is going to continue to decline as more and more vehicles switch to electric or switch to very fuel efficient hybrids. That's a great thing for a lot of reasons, but it does leave us with a structural problem with how we pay for transportation. I've been working over the interim. We'll be following the lead of Chair Jake Fye, who's going to be introducing a phased-in road usage charge. So in the future, folks will have the option to opt into, instead of paying gas tax, pay on a per mile basis. And then as that's phased in over the next decade, it'll become more and more mandatory for certain vehicle types, and then eventually for new vehicles. Want to emphasize that the proposal on the table will be 18th Amendment protected and will be instead of paying gas tax. So this is not a new thing that's on top of, it is instead of. Thanks for the question.
I'd just add briefly, this will be my 7th session on the Transportation Committee. And, every time we have a package, everybody comes in to say they're very excited about the spending package, and nobody comes in to speak about the revenue in any kind of meaningful way. We had so many, just the inflation of the supply chain, the amount of folks that, the prevailing wage on the labor side, things are just expensive. And as projects draw out, they become increasingly expensive. We also have a $4 billion injunction to fix the remaining culverts in Washington State, and a ferry system that is, I think, your poster child for deferred maintenance and all of the problems that that's causing. So we really need you to come support the revenue, and it can't just be the switch in the gas tax, although I'm totally open to that, or to the motor vehicle excise tax. I'm totally open to that being a part of the solution, but then we have to figure out where the revenue is going to come from to cover critical services like childcare and education. So there's no way we can move things across the ledger and not have negative externalities in the face of a budget that absolutely will require new revenue.
Thank you. Questions from the room? You can come on up. Step right up, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and taking time out of your busy schedule. I'm Tina Tate. I'm the CEO of Skagit Habitat for Humanity. I know most of you. I really quickly want to read you a couple of statistics out of an article from the Skagit Valley Herald just a couple of days ago. And it says the median home price in Skagit County continues to rise in 2024. It rose by 4.5%. And the median price to purchase a home is $579,900. The average price is $663,000. And in La Conner, the median home price went up about 16%. Burlington saw an increase of 22%, and so on and so forth. As you know, Habitat builds affordable homes. And we are very grateful for the Housing Trust Fund money that you all have supported. It is crucial for us to be able to build homes. Historically, this affiliate has built 1.5 homes per year. The last year, we completed 4 homes in 18 months. By the end of 2025, we are set to complete 11 homes. My question has to do with the cost to build, because even though we get Housing Trust Fund funding, which is great and crucial, it does not cover the costs. And we are having to raise the AMI of the people that we're serving, which used to be 30 to 60. We're having to go 60 to 80. And in the Anacortes build that we're currently doing, we're having to go 70 to 80 just because of the cost to build it. Even with, and the Housing Trust Fund funding is very limited. We may not even get it this year. We're going to go into a big deficit, even selling at 70 to 80% AMI. So my question goes to the cost to build. Is there anything that can be done in the legislature to help nonprofit affordable builders with the cost to build? Any tax exemption or any rebates, something like that, that can help us in decreasing the costs so that we can increase the number of homes we're putting on the market without having to drain our bank accounts. Thank you all so much for the work that you're doing.
Happy to take a stab at that one. Thanks, Tina, and thanks for the work that you're doing to provide housing in the community. Fitting that we started off talking about President Carter and are now talking about the important work of Habitat for Humanity. Your question's a good one. I would take one step back and just look at the way that we fund affordable housing. I think the Housing Trust Fund has been something that I've supported for a long time. I was writing letters to former legislators asking them to fully fund the Housing Trust Fund, and will continue to support putting money there as long as I'm in the legislature. That's important. I would be interested to take a look at the way the formula works and the funding that you're getting compared to the cost to build. My preference would be, rather than come up with a novel new tax incentive or other benefit that we can give, that you could stack on top of insufficient housing trust fund dollars. I'd rather figure out if there's a way that we can just increase the housing trust fund dollars and reduce for you and your team and for the state the amount of paperwork. One of the real challenges we have in how we build affordable housing in this country is that we say, oh, everybody wants to be the last dollar in. And so you've got a local fund, whether that's the Anacortes Home Fund, Skagit County puts a little bit of money in, maybe you've got a philanthropic entity, you got the Housing Trust Fund, maybe some Housing Finance Commission, and every single one of those requires a grant program, grant proposals, grant reporting. And if we had one source of funding, you could cut out a lot of that other paperwork. So that would be my preference, but happy to sit down and talk to you and hear about your experience with the Housing Trust Fund dollars being inadequate, because that would be where I'd rather start on trying to solve that problem.
Thank you. Other questions? Step up if you're here, I'm trying to say. Come on up, please. And if you're online, raise your hand or text, please. Message.
Thank you for hosting or coming to these things, Chamber. Thanks for hosting these. My name is Rebecca Screndy. I'm the CEO of the Helping Hands Food Bank here in Skagit County. Thank you all for all of your support in the food world. I know WSDA is asking for their largest funding ever, and they're nervous about that because that just covers the basics of what they're already doing. So we'll definitely be down there and seeing you guys this year during Hunger Action Day. But I don't really have a question. I have a, we want to help you. So we have 20,000 constituents that come to the food bank every year. And if you need their stories and you need their voice, we've testified before, and it really does help. So please, I will email each one of you our way to get a hold of us. But please, if there's anything that we can do in Skagit County to get those stories to you that help push those bills through, make it stronger, we're happy to help in any way we can. And thank you. It's going to be a tough one, and good luck.
Thank you, Becky. Any thoughts on that? Looks like Carolyn.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Rebecca. Since COVID, the Zooming has been made is so much more convenient for testimony. So I love the idea. I certainly will use you when I need you, and all your folks. Because I know there's fabulous stories there. Terrible, disheartening stories, but good for us to be using them. Thanks for that comment.
Thank you. And yeah, thank you so much for all of the work you do to help feed folks in our community. I know our food banks right now are really struggling with both the escalation of need and the expiration of the federal funding. So it's a real challenging time to be in a line of work that I imagine has a lot of heartbreak in it. So thank you for that. And thank you for the offer to come and speak up. And I would just reiterate my earlier request to help see the interconnectedness of funding that's needed for important programs like food banks and the need for new revenue. So when we're talking about things like wealth tax, please make sure that folks that you're organizing and advocating see that through line of asking folks who are making the most in Washington, who have the most in Washington, to pay a little bit more to help us balance the budget and be able to meet the needs for things like our food banks, our schools, our early childhood education, and behavioral health.
Other questions? Step right up.
Hi, my name's April Patterson. So I'm a local real estate agent. I also volunteer with Habitat for Humanity as a home buyer support. And we happen to know that one of the biggest struggles for Habitat for Humanity is acquiring the land. So I wonder if there's any conversation. We have a lot of vacant land here in Skagit County that is seller absent. Anacortes has an exceptional amount of seller absent land that they don't take care of. And I wonder if there's any conversation about tax incentives that would go to acquire this property for nonprofits.
So while I will say kind of broadly, our uniformity clause prohibits a lot of different things around tax incentives and tax rates for parcel properties. I would encourage you guys to all come in and testify in favor of my short-term rental excise tax bill, because that's one of the allowable uses is for cities or counties to purchase the raw land to be able to put benefit into the local community if they want to partner with a nonprofit like Habitat for Humanity to do the building. There's somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 35,000 short-term rentals in Washington state. You know, that is a significant portion of our housing shortage. And some communities are obviously impacted more than others, but this would go a long ways towards providing resources at the local level. And it's you know, the payment is coming from tourists that are coming into our areas, which I think for most people paying a couple extra dollars on the furnishment of a short-term rental is not going to be a reason that they would not be tourists. And instead we'll get the benefit of having more workforce housing that's going to allow for the folks that work in those industries to live in their communities.
Great, thanks. Yeah, really appreciate the work on that, Liz. That's good work. We'll just add the uniformity clause that was mentioned is in the Constitution. One of the rules I have for myself is we try and only do things that are constitutional. But there is a proposal that the city of Bellingham has is bringing forward. I haven't seen the details yet, but that would be sort of a vacancy tax that could help to address some of the challenges that you're talking about in Skagit County. It's a real problem in parts of downtown Bellingham. So that's something I'm very interested in. It is a live conversation and encourage you to stay tuned to that.
Thank you. Pretty much the last chance for questions. I'll put a statement in. Maybe there's a question in here somewhere. We've talked a lot about funding for education, and as legislators probably know, after the McCleary decision, Mount Vernon School District was one of the 20 that came out behind. So as there is ideally more funding, Mount Vernon continues to be behind. So again, probably more of a statement than a question, but if you have any thoughts, of course, I'd like to hear them.
I'll just lead out with, in addition to kind of some school districts that were left behind with McCleary, we also had a number of districts in our area that were left behind because of the levy formula. So Rep. Ramel and I have been working for years on trying to right-size things for the San Juans, Skagit Valley, and Bellingham, because frankly, the school districts in the 40th district in particular were hit hard by that levy formula. We know that we are woefully underfunding our special education in particular. And so I think we're working for ways that we can fully fund, in particular, special education to help bridge that gap. But we're hearing from, I mean, I will say, Rep. Ramel and I, and I'm sure Rep. Eslick as well, I have met with all of the Whatcom County superintendents, all of the Skagit County, all of the San Juan, and they're all saying the same thing. They're facing school closures because of reduced enrollment and any number of other issues. So there is no silver bullet that's going to fix this. But again, I mean, we just cannot emphasize strongly enough that without new revenue, I mean, you can look at the governor's budget. There was nothing in there that helped plus up funding categories in the education space. And we simply have to do more if we are going to deliver for our communities and for our children and for our future.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I think we did it. I've been remiss. I'm going to thank all of you, but I forgot to thank Avenue Catering for the delicious goodies. I mean, and I'm mentioning that so anybody on Zoom is like, oh man, I want to be there for the goodies and other things. Anyway, thank you. Legislators, you've been fantastic. We appreciate your participation. Those on Zoom, those in the room, thank you. This is important work we're doing, and we appreciate the opportunity for the sharing of information. Thank you all, and have a good, beautiful day. So long.
See you soon.